So in their video, Wisecrack has come to one conclusion. Batman vs. Superman's depiction of Superman and Batman are Randian characters. The fundamental flaw in this conclusion is that both characters are more complex than Rand's philosophy allows. And we wonder if Wisecrack jumped to a broad conclusion and fudged the details a little bit.
First off, Wisecrack bases their entire argument on Randian principles.
Wait, back up, who?
Ayn Rand wrote The Fountainhead. The Fountainhead was written in 1943 and was based on a character named Howard Rourke, an objectivist. Objectivism, by definition, is the belief that certain things, especially moral truths, exist independently of human knowledge or perception of them.
From her book Atlas Shrugged, according to Ayn Rand, her philosophy is the concept of a man as a heroic being with his own happiness as the moral purpose of his life, with productive achievement as his noblest activity and the reason as his absolute.
Her most popular characters are Howard Rourke from The Fountainhead and Hank Rearden from Atlas Shrugged. So big, strong men with unwavering ideals who didn't care about anyone except themselves. Essentially gods with little regard for the weaker, needy, starving, homeless, etc. species.
Let's start with a look back at 2013's Man of Steel to understand Superman's conflict.
Both being part of the same cinematic universe. Here's how Superman is like Rourke and Rearden. He's a good-looking, lady-killing, action-taking, won't take no for an answer kind of guy. Here's how Superman is not like Rourke or Rearden.
Get ready, this list is huge. Like my dick!
Dream on, dream on. Superman is a savior-type character who wants to fix the world by bringing hope to its inhabitants. Jor-El says,
The people of Earth are different from us, it's true. But ultimately, I believe that's a good thing. They won't necessarily make the same mistakes we did. Not if you guide them, Cal. Not if you give them hope.
Superman's actions are based on emotion and empathy. When he dons the suit, he becomes the world's savior. Literally, the opposite of objectivism's foundations and beliefs. Objectivism doesn't value empathy. But what is Superman without his empathy, his compassion towards others, and willingness to help? Additionally, he's conflicted throughout Batman v Superman. He isn't confident in his decisions, he's easily wavered in his convictions, and questions his existence and purpose.
remember those critics who labeled him as mopey or a downer?
This is also a contradiction of a Randian hero.
That's a little bit of an oxymoron.
Rourke's failed to convince the masses that his architectural designs were better, eventually ruining his reputation. Howard Rourke and every hero in Rand's novels are swimming upstream, fighting for what they believe is the best way to do things.
A quick note, yes, all superhero movies, all protagonists face conflicts that are personal or individual issues, a tug at our heartstrings, because it makes them more personable, relatable for the audience. Even their example of Christopher Reeve's Superman being the ideal hero, a hero that only thinks of others, still has his moments of selfishness, when he turns back time to save the woman he loves.
Or in Superman 2, like when he goes back to embarrass the bully who whooped his ass when he didn't have any powers.
According to the Randian principles, that would be a virtue of selfishness. It's hard to relate to Rand's characters on a personal level, which is why we haven't seen a blockbuster Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged movies have flopped so hard. And yes, I've seen them both. Holy shit, garbage fire. Examples, Blade. Throughout the movie, he is protecting people. He is ridding the world of vampires. But by the end of the movie, it becomes a personal conflict between him and Frost, because Frost is the one that bit his mother and turned him into what he is and ruined his life.
That fucker. Captain America is another example. His boner for Bucky.
Boner Bucky, BBB. Ant-Man, his whole story is about getting back to his daughter. He turns his back on that idea during Captain America Civil War, but that was the whole point.
Yes.
I guess.
And pretty much anything from Iron Man.
Very personal stories.
Batman in the Batman v Superman world, he is actually a pretty decent Randian hero. He's a big, strong man, with strong ideals. Batman doesn't give a shit about what people think, including the police, the government, and society. He strives to be the best at what he does. He's a hunter like his ancestors and believes his legacy, the Wayne's legacy, hinges on eliminating Superman from this world.
I'm older now than my father ever was. This may be the only thing I do that matters.
20 years of fighting criminals amounts to nothing.
Criminals are like weeds, Alfred. Pull one up, another grows in its place. This is about the future of the world. It's my legacy.
He's a man with conviction that won't be unwavered.
My name is Bruce Wayne. When I was 10, my parents were murdered in front of my eyes. I've spent my life training to fight the same sort of criminals that took them from me. But this is different. This isn't about me.
You're telling me this why?
This is bigger than I am, and it's bigger than you are. Get out of your own way. Focus on what's important here. Everyone else.
Batman's speech to Green Lantern in Justice League War is the opposite of a Randian character, really opposite of Ben Affleck's Batman. Justice League War's Batman is an example of a selfless individual. This Batman is humbled, tired, and aware of the situation when he realizes this fight is bigger than a single person.
However, throughout Batman v Superman, Superman mimics these same emotions, and his feelings are reflected in his actions. He has accepted what Jor-El has told him.
You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards. They will race behind you. They will stumble. They will fall. But in time, they will join you in the sun, Cal. In time, you will help them accomplish wonders.
He has become that character, but that doesn't mean he's perfect at it. People still doubt him. He becomes a polarizing person in his world, and because of that, he's doubting himself. Is he doing the right thing? Who is he to decide who lives or dies? These questions are what makes him a different character than Ben Affleck's Batman. Clark even says, "The Bat Vigilante is like a one-man reign of terror."
The fight between Batman and Superman is still full of tension, conflict, and opposing beliefs. Even with Lex's manipulation, there are fundamental differences between Batman and Superman. After Superman's death, spoiler, Batman regrets his choices and begins to realize he was wrong.
I failed him. In life. I won't fail him in death.
Batman understood his path was the wrong path, and individualism is what caused him to go down such a dark path. He becomes less of a hero and more of a vigilante, out for his own personal needs.
Superman accepts his role as a hero and a savior to the world, but will also protect the ones closer to him.
Wisecrack was right. He did choose the collectivism and individualism road. And why did he do that?
Because he's fucking Superman.
Only the Man of Steel could embody both fundamental philosophies. He has become what both Robin Hood dads wanted him to become, a savior and an inspiration.
Zack Snyder, on the other hand, has an infatuation with the Fountainhead. Frank Miller has a gas station Viagra hard-on for objectivism. One could say Snyder is a lot like Rand's character, Howard Rourke. Snyder's vision is usually a mixed bag.
What does that mean?
His directing is polarizing. People tend to doubt his vision because he doesn't stick with the norm. He goes for what's best for the movie. Rourke failed to convince the masses that his architectural designs were better, eventually ruining his reputation simply because people wanted to stick with the status quo. Marvel.
This does not mean that Superman and Batman are based off these ideals, especially because writers Chris Terrio and David S. Gore are necessarily Rand devotees. In conclusion, Wisecrack's attempt to compare the characters of the Fountainhead or Ayn Rand's philosophies of an ideal man to Batman vs. Superman is a misleading outlook.
In truth, Snyder and Rourke is somewhat a better comparison. Think about how much attention this movie has produced for its ideas, concepts, and choices.
That's what DCU movies do, other than Suicide Squad because it's shit.
The Fountainhead is about an architect whose vision is very different from others, and his vision means more to him personally than others. He doesn't care about what others think, and at the end of The Fountainhead, Rourke's outside nonconformist outlook slowly becomes accepted and understood. So he gives it one more go to what he really can do, and I feel like this really correlates with Zack Snyder's storytelling.
Snyder gets the last opportunity with Justice League to prove the DCEU is different from all those other superhero movies. The general audience scrutinize him for his interpretation of these characters, and he's brought down as an individual in the world, and his reputation is ruined because of people that want to stick to the norm.
What Martha tells Clark is about choice.
Be their hero, Clark. Be their monument, be their angel, be anything they need you to be. Or be none of it. You don't owe this world a thing.
This is so key to the Man of Steel story. It's about choice. Jonathan Kent has a very similar conversation with Clark about the kids on the bus.
I just wanted to help.
I know you did, but we talked about this. Right? Right? We talked about this. You have... Oh, Clark, you have to keep this side of yourself a secret.
What was I supposed to do? Just let him die?
Maybe. There's more at stake here than just our lives, Clark, or the lives of those around us. When the world finds out what you can do, it's going to change everything. Our beliefs, our notions of what it means to be human, everything. We were sure the government was going to show up at our doorstep, but no one ever came. This was in the chamber with you. I took it to a metallurgist at Kansas State. He said whatever it was made from didn't even exist on the periodic table. That's another way of saying that it's not from this world, Clark. And neither are you. You're the answer, son. You're the answer to are we alone in the universe?
I don't want to be.
And I don't blame you, son. It'd be a huge burden for anyone to bear. But you're not just anyone, Clark, and I have to believe that you were sent here for a reason. All these changes that you're going through, one day you're going to think of them as a blessing, and when that day comes, you're going to have to make a choice. A choice of whether to stand proud in front of the human race or not.
Can I just keep pretending I'm your son?
You are my son.
It's about choice and what is the right choice. In the end, Superman's sacrifice to save the world is his choice. This is his world, and Lois is his world, and he chooses to save his worlds like a true Superman should.
Well, that was fun, reading from a script. First and probably last.
Yes, we hope you enjoyed it.
We actually worked on that a little bit. We probably said that in the intro. We'll find out.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
Shane has some additional things he wants to plug into that whole breaking down of the Batman versus Superman philosophy.
Yeah, so Wisecrack, overall, I liked the way that they were taking a different avenue to breaking down the Batman v Superman movie. A lot of people just shit on it. The Martha scene is obviously a big joke now.
Yeah.
But they kind of took it in a different direction, and I was really intrigued by the way they did that. I was surprised to see that it came out just recently.
Yeah.
You know,
2017, and we're still talking about this fucking movie, people.
Yeah.
Civil what?
Yeah, so it's crazy how big of an impact this movie has had, negative or positive. So it's nuts. So just a couple extra things that I wanted to add when you, hopefully by now you've watched the Wisecrack video, and you can tell that there are specific situations that they clearly totally misunderstood the movie,
right,
as a whole. So in the video, he clearly admits to being confused as to why Batman wants to kill Superman. He's looking at it more as Batman's ego. Well, if a godlike figure exists, similar to what Lex Luthor's arguing, he even says, how are you supposed to make your own choices if there's something that's so much greater than you? And I think that's a fundamental flaw in and just how this YouTube video was made, because if he doesn't understand what Batman's truly fighting for and what his realization that he came to, then you're missing a huge part of the plot.
Right, and that's what we kind of stated in the beginning of our little scripted moment there, which we hope you all enjoy. But I think they came to this conclusion of Randian characters and stuff like that because that's what some of the source material kind of came from, because of Miller's, as we stated in there, his gas station Viagra hard on
right.
for objectivism. It doesn't mean that influenced these characters. This is a basic story plot, 3-act system.
Right.
This is what stories do now. They always take characters, they build them up bigger than what they are, and then they fall.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it is. And then they have their moments to rebuild or replenish or redeem themselves as characters.
Right.
And I think they're trying to add philosophy to a 3-act structure of a movie, and it doesn't quite work on this one, especially Ayn Rand's philosophies.
Right. And I think they have an interesting take,
right,
and a certain direction as far as where Batman has been. I could agree with the individualism take on that. Where is at, and once Superman shows up with Zod and he witnesses Zod them crashing through the sky and all the meteors and everything and shit just falling, there's a complete switch in understanding. I've done all of these things. We already played the criminals are like weeds quote, but he's done all these things, and this may be the biggest thing that he does. And,
right.
And he comes to a realization this is bigger than him. It's
about the future. This is
right.
his legacy.
Yes. So that's selfishness, not necessarily being, a Randian type character.
Yeah, his ego is not being affected by Superman's presence. He actually believes he truly is saving the world. He's ridding the world of an individual that he believes has a 1% chance of possibly wiping out the entire world.
Right.
And it's stated throughout the movie. So where they try to come to this conclusion, it's either stretching. They're stretching to meet their conclusion they came up with to fill in those blanks.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the flaw came in on Wisecrack's YouTube video.
Yeah. So there's another point that they completely missed. It's the point of Jonathan's ghost talk. And we can go back and forth. We've brought up just that being there to begin with.
It's Ghost Dad.
I love the lesson is trying to teach, but the way that it was done, I don't really care for. But going back to Wisecrack, I think they completely missed the point, because even in the video, he basically states that Jonathan Kent is telling Clark there's no point to do good because there will always be another flooded farm that you couldn't save. This is in the Wisecrack video. Hopefully, again, you've watched it at this point. But so the way that he's saying it is Jonathan Kent is saying, well, you have to be an individualist. You have to love your wife. She's the only person who gave me hope in this world, hope that there's good in this world. So focus more on her and less on saving the rest of the world. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think he is just showing that there's a causality to everything that you do. There's going to be repercussions one way or another.
Cause and effect.
Yep, exactly. And he is saying the only way you make it through that and you still make those decisions is because you still have your wife who is showing you there's still good in this world.
Yep.
And you have to keep fighting for that, and she will always be that example. So that's another clear example that Wisecrack totally watch this differently, or like you said, they're fudging the way the narrative of the film to fit in their narrative for their YouTube video.
So that's kind of overall our discussion on this. Wisecrack, again, does a great job. I watch their videos constantly. I have read Atlas Shrugged, Fountainhead. I just recently purchased The Virtue of Selfishness. This, I understand some of Rand's novelist ideas about stories, and the way she does stuff, it's a major overkill. And to try to compare those philosophies or even those characters from those books is just like, it's
a stretch.
It's a stretch because it's not relatable, as we said in our earlier scripted note. Because you can tell by now this shit's not scripted.
Yeah, no, the way we're stumbling over our words, and we had 4 fucking takes. Oh, you don't know that because of editing.
But those characters are beyond what is in this world.
Yeah.
And these characters are brought down to our world, our more relatable world.
Yeah.
To compare it and to stretch it into that, I just don't think it works. It was a good try, but it just doesn't fundamentally fulfill this movie. It
Right.
doesn't give the justice. It's about God complex. It's about, there is some individualistic ideas to it, but it's about purpose, choice, and what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. I will say, you know, as you mentioned, it was a great attempt at kind of trying to bring a different look, a viewpoint to Batman v Superman. And I've actually now have even more of an appreciation for the movies because, not really realizing it, I've never watched Man of Steel or Batman v Superman from the point of view of the heroes themselves. I've always watched them of like the events that happen are just kind of there, but I never put myself in that mind. I always looked at it as from us. You know, you look at Man of Steel and the Superman shows up and holy shit, what would that do to the world? And,
Right.
and then all these events happen. That's how I've always approached it. But when you know, we talked about doing this episode and I watched Man of Steel again. It was a perfect excuse for me to watch both movies. And I watched them, and I watched them in a very different, I almost ignored anything else that happened unless it was involving the heroes. And when I watched those, I was watching it in, okay, what decisions are they making, and how are they approaching the situation, and why are they making these decisions, and is it showing altruism or is it showing individualism? And
Right.
you know, and it was a completely different way that I approached the movies that even gave me more of an appreciation for these two films.
And one of the things, again, about relatability, we even have this quote from Zack Snyder where he was talking with Collider. He was talking to Steve Frosty Weintraub. I like how he calls himself Frosty. He is a pale motherfucker, so at least he knows it.
Sounds like a wrestling name from the 90s, early 90s.
And we have this quote, and he talks about Superman's humanity.
And I thought for his evolution as a character, Superman's character, there's a crucible that he has to go through, sort of to really embrace his humanity or find, like, what is it? Like, what is the ultimate thing about being human? What the ultimate thing you face is your mortality. And that's a thing that I think is really, you know, cool about this.
And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to make this relatable story, and he's bringing the death of Superman and his humanity to the forefront.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie's about. You can break it down in philosophies, but to dig that deep into Ayn Rand's philosophy is a very hard thing to do, and it's very hard to project that into a blockbuster movie or a movie in general,
Right.
especially about heroes. Because heroes are basically the opposite. As we said before, I'm bringing it up again, it's the opposite of a Randian character. They do everything for the benefit of others.
Yep.
They do everything they can to make the world around them better for others. So that's just, you can't, as we said, it's an oxymoron. You can't have a Randian hero.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense.
No, doesn't work.
Again, Wisecrack, awesome, but this is how we feel about it. If you guys have anything you want to tell us about it or how you feel about it, you can email us, contact us at Comic Movie Marks or on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Comic Movie Marks. At our YouTube page at Comic Movie Marks, we kind of check that.
Yeah, this video obviously will be on YouTube, so you can comment in there. You know, feel free. That's what we're here for.
So we want to hear feedback. Even tell us what you think, if this was even worth our attempt of doing this. I worked 10, 11-hour days this week, and I still tried to type this fucking thing out.
Still managed.
So fuck all y'all if you didn't like it. I tried.